Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're excited to welcome you to this webinar on the workshop with resources for gender transformative change. Okay, so my name is Jacinta Kapungu and I serve as the Gender Community of Practice co-champion, and I'm here with my co-champion, Candace Chirwa. She's the Community of Practice co-champion and youth advisor. So happy for you to come. Please feel free to mute yourself when not speaking. Go to the next slide. Candace will be monitoring the chat feature and providing any backhand support. So we have an exciting agenda today. This is our first CoP meeting of the year. I'm going to give a brief overview of the community of practice and who we are and what we do. The care team from Tipping Point will review their gender norms and resources and tools. We want to make sure that we're all on have the same foundation about gender transformative programming. So they'll talk a little bit more about norms and then introduce their framework. And then we'll do a closing and upcoming events. We'll have breakout rooms about an hour into the webinar to get more discussion, and then we'll also have Q&A at the end. Next slide. So who are we? Well, the Gender CoP aims to promote dialogue that is inclusive, contextually relevant, and localized. We have engaging, interactive, and meaningful discussions which promote cross-cultural learning. And we really aim to provide practical strategies which can be implemented in the field, which can improve gender intentional work. Next slide. So if you're interested in joining the CoP and Youth Power, you can go to www.youthpower.org and you can register on that website. And then we have a subpage that says Connect, and it lists all the different CoP that you can join. And we have a range of them, from youth engagement to youth systems. And so feel free to connect with other members of Youth Power. And it's also an opportunity to get resources as well as opportunities on jobs for the Gender CoP every Monday. We call it Mindful and Wishful Monday. And that's when we send newsletters, which will provide information on webinars, resources, job opportunities, things of that sort. So if you want to get those newsletters, you can always connect by registering on youthpower.org for the Gender CoP. Next slide. And so I want to start off by introducing our speakers. We have Sprinkel, who serves as Project Director of Tipping Point Initiative from CARE. Sprinkel has been working in the field of gender-based violence prevention and norms and behavior change for over 10 years. She has worked with teams in emergency and development settings in the adolescent rights and youth program spaces to design research and implement gender transformative approaches that shift the power to youth. We also have Soraya Sultana. She serves as Technical Coordinator for Accelerating Action to End Child Marriage in Bangladesh from CARE. Suraiya is a development activist with 8 years of experience in youth engagement and girl-centered movement building. She's worked with team in the design and implementation of gender transformative programs and social norms shifting programs. Currently, she's been working to build the capacity of grassroots level organizations, specifically women and youth-led organizations, to deliver SBCC program on the ground. And then finally, we have Upasana Shestra. She serves as Province Coordinator for USAID's Adolescent Reproductive Health in Nepal with CARE. Upasana is a public health professional with more than 10 years of experience around health, sexual and reproductive health and rights, gender-based violence, and gender in emergencies. She's engaged intensively past many years in adolescent-led health and development program implementation, and is seen contributing in policy advocacy against child early and forced marriages. We're so happy to have our speakers here today. We hope to have a substantive, engaging workshop with them. Please feel free to insert any reflections, experiences, comments, or questions in the chat, and I'll hand it off to Anne.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having us here. I'm really excited to spend some time with you today. Like Jessica said, I'm here with my teammates Soraya and Upasana from Care Bangladesh and Care Nepal. We're going to share our experience for norm shifting programming and how it ties to gender transformative youth programming. Next slide, please. Jessica already went over the agenda for us. We'll have a little over an hour. We'll do definitions first. We're going to talk about how to explore norms, how to design norm shifting interventions, and then we'll do a group activity to see where our programming can improve. I want to say that this is not a formal presentation. We want your questions and comments all the way through the presentation. And we're also really excited to hear what experience you have with this stuff. So please do not hold your questions and comments to the end. There's a lot of expertise and experience in this room, and I'm just excited to share what we have with you. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to my teammate Upasana.
Hello. Hi everyone, I'm Upasana, and I'll be starting with exploring our basic understanding on gender transformative program. As Anne mentioned, like we are not, these presentations are not formal presentations, and we want more of your discussions to be embedded into the presentation as well. And we wanted to start the presentation with our own understanding on gender transformative programming. And when we talk about this gender transformative programming, so this type of programming needs to address not just the symptoms of gender inequality, but the fundamental aim should and remain to address root causes of gender inequality within the society. Transformative change, when we say the term transformative change itself, it means addressing the structural causes. Such programs and interventions should not only just create temporary increase in opportunities, but rather it should be creating opportunities for individuals to actively challenge gender norms and also to promote in a position of social and political influence to save power in inequalities. So that was make our programs gender transformative. And for most of the development practitioners, what I usually see is using the term gender responsive and gender transformative most often and interchangeably. But we really need to understand that gender responsive programs includes of only specific actions, which we try to reduce the symptoms in superficial way that addresses gender inequalities. But gender transformative programs is designed in a way to address the root causes. So that is very important for us when we are talking about gender transformative programming. And there are a few critical aspects, as you can see in the presentation as well, that needs to be considered. For example, gender transformative programming should encourage critical awareness of gender roles and norms. It should be promoting equitable positions of girls and women in society and recognizing importance of increasing their agency. And it should be equally challenging the distribution of resources and allocations of duties between women, men, and other identities in the society. And we should be equally considering different factors such as age, disability, sex, and others as well. Similarly, it should also be it also recognizes needs to shift social expectation and behaviors more, and it is not just only focusing on individual attitude level change. So that needs to be understood when we are talking about gender transformative programming. And yes, most importantly, it should have shifts in the unequal power relationships between girls, women, and other members in the community, whether that be the service providers or whether that be the traditional healers, for instance. Next slide, please. Yeah, as you can see on the screen, we have CARE's gender equality framework, which was developed to assist CARE's staff in conceptualizing and planning gender equality work. Our theory of change is based on CARE's experience that achieving gender equality and women's voice requires transformative change. And when we say transformative change and transformative programming, we need to see change across all these three domains that you can see on the screen, which we have mentioned as agency, relations, and structures. So the aim is to build agency of people of all genders throughout the life stages, and such type of programming should also be focusing equally on changing relationships between them and transfer structures in order that all people enjoy get to realize their full potential in their public and private life as well. And they are also able to contribute equally and benefit equally from social, political, and economical development aspects as well. So all of these clear evidence has been based and has been emphasizing that change needs to take place and to be sustained in all three key domains, as you can see on the screen, and then only it is possible to achieve gender transformative impact. And when we talk about change is also required in both public and private spaces. For example, as an individual, we see change. Similarly, in the household level, whether it be the community or the larger societal level, so that the changes that we are trying to achieve sustains shift in power relationships as well. So that is very important when we talk about gender equality framework. Next slide, please. So now, after talking about gender equality framework, I would like to give a little bit of emphasis on CARE's gender marker. What is it, and why we have been applying this in our programming? So within the CARE also, we want to know if we are doing gender transformative programming or not. And because most of our development projects are seeking to be gender transformative, we already have discussed in the definition of gender transformative program as well. But this gender marker tool is something that helps our team to assess the overall stages of a programming. And when we say overall stages of a programming, we want to assess it in terms of our program strategy, program design, whether that be the implementation process, and measuring it along with the CARE's gender continuum, as you can see in the screen. And the overall tool, which we call a weighting set here, as you can see in the screen, it supports team to assess and integrate 5 different domains of gender integration criteria. Using this weighting form set, we start using this tool, and we start reflecting within the team members and within the project team itself. And to have that reflection, we usually start with one question. And that question is, where is the project, or is the project that we are implementing, that we are working with, is it really trying to change or challenge existing gender roles, relations, and structures? So that is one particular question that we want to answer. And within the team, we have different kinds of reflection. And if we are really challenging gender roles and expectations, then only we have the chance to score our program as gender transformative. And to move on with the further analysis, we usually answer questions related to 5 different domains which are placed in the gender integration aspects. And to do that, we have different other components to be critical at. For example, we look at the analysis part, whether the project or the program is really doing certain kind of gender analysis, and what kind of social norms are evolving through those different kinds of analysis. We are critically looking after that aspects. Similarly, when we are implementing different kinds of activities, so we want to ensure like whether it is really challenging existing gender roles and relations or not, and what are those activities that are critically addressing societal gender and social norms that is really impacting or impacting our project outcomes. So that activities are also discussed within the team member. Another important aspect also includes the participation thing, where we ensure like women, men, and girls, and other different identities in the society are welcomed and participating equally, whether their participation has been meaningful or not, and whether their voices are being heard or not. So that kind of discussions take place when we are using this gender marker tool set. And the most importantly, we also look after monitoring, evaluation, action, and learning. And to do that, we often monitor our programming in terms of changing gender roles and relations. For example, if we are focusing on women and girls empowerment, then we might need to assess whether women are taking more decision-making roles in the organization itself, for example, or maybe women are taking place in national parliaments. So that kind of different indicators are essential to monitor the progress throughout the programming. And in each year, we have these kinds of reflection and dialogue within the team, and the gender marker tool is a very supportive tool from which the team can learn from each other, and the team can learn from our programming and whether our programming is really making a difference to achieve the desired level of outcomes, ensuring program quality and improvement. And there are different kinds of brainstorming ways which helps us to fill us the gaps in our current programming, and we make sure that with all of these reflections, with all of this brainstorming, we ensure that our programming are more gender transformative. Next slide, please. So we also know that from the gender equality framework that we discussed previously, that we need to transform informal structures to achieve gender transformative change, because when we talk about informal structures itself, it relates with the restrictive social and gender norms which are prevalent in the society, and that is actually preventing our program from achieving the desired level of outcomes. And the gender marker tool also suggested us that we need to challenge certain gender roles and expectations, and see whether these norms are really being gender transformative or not. So that is very critical aspects to consider in a programming. And you can also see the different kinds of examples given on the screen. These are just few examples which we can kind of relate our programming. Maybe if we are doing different kinds of programming with girls on school education, then maybe we need to consider division of labor, which results in time poverty of many women and girls, and this is affecting girls' school attendance, or also like women's engagement in productive activities, whether that be the income generation activities or the civic engagement spaces. So that is very important when we are doing different kinds of programming. For example, if we take another programming on agriculture, for instance, then often in agriculture, women's role is clearly unrecognized. So what are those different kinds of norms that is really hindering women's presence and women's agency as a whole? That all needs to be considered, and how this informal structures could be transformed to in order to make our programming more gender responsive and gender transformative is very much important to understand. And I would also like to take another example. For example, if our program is working on a nutrition project, and there is a social cultural norms that women and girls should eat the least and have to get to eat at the last, then this is definitely going to affect the nutritional outcomes of mothers and children. So all these examples are few that we can relate with our programming, and I'm sure that you have many other examples that you have been working on with your programming, and how these social and gender norms really creates a difference when we are seeking to a desired level of outcome in our programming. So so these are just a few examples, and here I would also like to relate a little bit with Nepal's tipping point programming, like how the norm shifting or transforming the informal structures were happening in the tipping point project while engaging with the girls. For example, girls-led activities were intensively done in the tipping point project, where girls were leading around different different issues to be addressed, different social norms to be addressed, such as dowry or early child marriage, family honor, mobility, sexual harassment. So these are some of the issues that were really impacting girls in different aspects, and girls were leading different kinds of events to change this social norms intervention. And to relate this, let me give another example. For example, girls were seen leading their campaigns to address mobility restrictions. So if so all of the girls were taking mobility restriction as a very common social norms that existed within the communities, and they wanted to have society address these issues together. And to do that, they had done different kinds of activities. For example, they conducted survey on their own, share findings of the survey to the community and stakeholder. They had started building allyship with others girl network, and also worked with parents, boys, and religious leaders. And to do all of these, creating a safe space for their own critical dialogues was very much critical to the girl-led programming that we introduced in Tipping Point project. And also the project itself could manage having flexible funds, and this also supported to build their agency as well as challenging norms that impacted their life. So these are just a few examples that I wanted to relate with my experience, and I'm sure there are many other norms that is impacting your programming too. So to reflect on that, I would like to request you all to think about what are those norms that affect your programming the most. So I want you all to think on that, and if you're feeling comfortable to address that, you can also put it on in the chat box, like what are the norms that are actually affecting your programming the most. So you can think upon and have those things written in the chat box. And to discuss these norms further, I would like to hand to my teammate Suraiya from CARE Bangladesh and take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Upashana, and hello everyone again. Okay, so in the meantime, you're writing about the norms that are affecting your programming. Let's start with a simple question. What are social norms? How would you like to define social norms? Please let us know your thoughts in chat box also. So how would you like to define social norms? What could be the definition of social norms according to you? I will keep an eye on chat box if anyone would like to share their thoughts with us. Okay. So what is perceived as a should do action by the wider community? Someone wrote that, and other participants shared that what people perceive is common or and accepted is called social norms, and social norms could be informal behavior that societies live by, societal expectation from men and women, beliefs that shape our decisions might be the definition of social norms. Social norms could be the conditions, social norms that defined by society in terms of gender. Absolutely, there are also gender social norms. Yes, social norms are the unwritten laws, social roles, societal expectation. Okay. Yes, we do agree with you that social norms are the rules that govern behavior. That sentence right there says to change behavior, you need to identify and possibly shift norms. And the social norms are different, very different from individual belief and our attitude. And also those are unwritten, those are not written anywhere, and those are unspoken norms that we expect or other people are expecting us to follow or maintain those norms in our attitude and behavior. So let's see a figure and explore more what the social norms are around us. So what do you see in this figure? People are waiting in a line for getting a service. So there are two main reasons that people wait in a line to get a service. First, people expect that everyone else around them will do so to maintain the line and will wait for their turn. And the second cause here that people expect that others expect them to do so, because if they skip the line, they will expect a negative social sanction, or otherwise they will face negative consequences from others around them. So therefore we follow the rules. Therefore we wait for our turns in a turn to before getting any service in a line. So there are many different factors that influence our behavior, including individual level factors such as personal attitude or knowledge. There are also structural factors that influence our behavior, like laws, social factors like power dynamics in relationship, as well as the material constraints such as availability of our service actually influence our behavior. So within this interplay of factors, social norms can act either as a brake in the process of behavioral change or an accelerator. So it's important we understand the potential role that social norms play in sustaining specific behavior and in what context. So in chat box, you will find a resource paper where we documented CARE's journey about the social norms theory to practice. So let's talk about the differences between attitude, behavior, and social norms. So sometimes we get social change and behavioral change mixed up, but they are very connected, but those things are very different. So let's walk through this example to talk about the differences between social norms, attitude, and behavior. The first sentences we see here: men and women should be considered equal. What do you think? Is it an attitude or behavior or social norms? Please feel free to write in chat box. The first sentence says, according to what is it? Is it an attitude or a social norms? Or it might be a behavior. Okay, someone wrote that it might be a social norms. Okay, social norms. But unfortunately, this is not the social norms, it's an attitude. People are thinking that men and women should be considered equal. And the second thing, if a man and his wife divide the household chores between themselves, it's the behavioral, component. And the last sentence here, example here, is actually the social norms, because the most people in my community think that the men who help wives at their home or contribute to household chores are not manly enough, because here social expectation that men should not be engaged in household chores, or like washing dish and cooking, because that the characteristics of man, the expectation from the men from men, the society actually society actually characterized or expect the community members to follow certain rules and follow certain expectation, fulfill certain expectation from themselves. So therefore, the first thing, and already written writes here, that the first one is an individual behavior, what the people, you and or other community member actually think about them within them, think and believe them within themselves. It's kind of this kind of differences between social norms and attitude. So let's talk about the gender social norms and social norms. So this is just a quick slide about the difference between gender social. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the main takeaway is we would like to share with you that social norms are the large umbrella that include gender norms as well. And at CARE, we focus on both, but spend a lot of time and energy on gender norms. As you can see that we have highlighted in a green to explain why, because gender norms are in the world embedded in institution and produced by people's attitude. And one thing to note about gender norms, actually changing them require changing power dynamics. So this work is specific to context, and it is not easy, and it can result in backlash. And also changing gender norms is a political project that leads to equality between man and woman. Next slide, please. So here is a framework what CARE used to measure the social norms changes or to define a certain social norms. So CARE social norms analysis plot, in short we call it SNAP framework. That framework will tell us about a norm to let us know if it really exists, the norms if the norms really exist in the society, and what is its weak points, and if it's actually the thing that's driven the behavior we discussed. So before I go over the framework, I would like to point out the 5 components of a norms that this framework focused on. The first component is empirical expectation, that is what I think others do. For example, in my community, as an adolescent girls, maybe the empirical expectation is once I have got the chance, I have to marry, because my friends are getting married at a very early stage. And the second component of this framework is normative expectation, which is what I think people expect me to do. So for example, everyone in my community expect that adolescent girls at the age of 12 to 15 years old should get married. So this could be the normative expectation in my community. And the third component of this framework is sanctions, which is anticipated opinion or reaction of others, specifically those people whose opinion matters to me. So maybe if I'm not married at the age of 14 or 15 years, maybe I can be insulted by my neighbor, or my family could be insulted by my neighbors and extended family members, and maybe I could be found out as an defined as an unattractive girl in the marriage market. And the fourth component here is to sensitivity to sanctions. So what sanction matter for behavior is if there is any negative reaction from others, like other society member, that could be the what would be my what I will change my behavior in the future. So in few communities, most girls would change their mind and marry after prolonged the insult and isolation by the other community members. So that could be the sensitivity to the sanction if they not get married in a very early age. So the last one is the expectation. The expectation is like under what circumstances would be okay for me or the adolescent girls to break the norms. So most of the girls might refuse marriage if they continue their study at the school, and their enabling factors like their teacher, their parents could convince show their positive behavior, or their friends convince their family to let them learn and continue their school. So there might be the exceptions that they could not follow, or they could not pressurize by the social norms that exist in their community. So by using those 5 components, the SNAP framework really help the program part, the programming to identify what gender social norms actually exist for the specific behavior or practice in question. And the second uses of these 5 components are to explore whether gender social norms influence the behavior and for whom it actually influences. And this framework also could be used to identify whether the social norms are changing and how and why those norms are being changed in the community. And the third, by this framework, or by using these frameworks, is also helpful to explore the catalyst to change the norms. So which catalysts are changing the norms. So to understand those two things, we collect information, experience, or even data during different stages of the project for each norm that affecting our programming. So now I would like to hand over to Anne to talk about how to find out information of each norms that importance in our context. So over to you, Anne.
Thanks, Soraya. Really quickly in the chat as I get started on this, if you work on a project that has any intention of monitoring or evaluating or understanding your activities, show me a hand, raise your hand, or give me any type of wave, a thumbs up, anything like that. Okay, great. I'm seeing more. Okay, congratulations to all of those people. You officially have the opportunity to understand norms better, understand if your project or program is changing them or not. So lots of opportunities here. And it can come at lots of different stages of a project. It could come at formative research, or if you do gender analysis, it can come at that point. If you do a baseline, so for instance, at the start of your project, if you're trying to understand what's happening and what the situation is before you implement activities, that's an opportunity to see if norms are there, assess if they're really strong or if there are cracks in them or opportunities for change. So just want to say there's lots of opportunities to do this type of work, and I'm going to run you through a quick couple of examples. Next slide, please. So really participatory tools are best to see how community members define social norms themselves and how those norms restrict them from adopting positive behaviors that we're seeking. The information generated from that type of exercise can also help you understand where to invest in activities to shift norms. Some of the examples of participatory activities are in CARE's Gender Analysis Toolkit, but I find that a really common tool, give me a thumbs up if you've ever heard of the 24-hour clock. Has anybody heard about that? Or daily clock? Has anybody ever heard of that type of gender analysis or exploration tool? Okay, I'm seeing some yeses. Okay, so really quickly what it is, you just have a group of maybe women and men, or maybe you have a group of like adolescent girls and adolescent boys, and you ask them hour by hour, what do you do every single hour of your day? And in general, it gives you really basic information about what people do. And you're probably going to find that girls have a higher household workload than boys, or men versus women. Or men go outside of the house to get income and income generating activities, but women don't. So you can find out that pretty general gender information and basic program information, but you can also start to ask questions about norms. So going back to those components of a norm that Suraiya was talking about, you can start to ask about sanctions. Hey, what happens to you if you don't do your chores before you go to school? Or what happens if they're not completely done? That's probably going to tell you information about sanctions. Well, how sensitive to them are you? If you don't finish your chores, does that mean that you don't go to school because you're really concerned about the sanction or the consequence or the punishment that you may face? So you can start to ask questions about norms, even in really simple focus group discussions or discussions with program participants or even staff, exploring their experience of these norms as well. Next, and some other opportunities are things called outcome mapping and photo voice. Again, participatory tools are the best way to go here. Next slide. So another opportunity would be a focus group discussion using something called a vignette. Vignettes are very popular for social norms measurement. Basically, they're short stories told about imaginary characters, but they're in specific contexts. And they have guiding questions to invite people to respond to the story in a structured way to give you social norms, information, and data. So here you can see that the facilitator says, I'm going to tell you a story. It's a fictional story about a girl named Salma. Let's pretend they're from this village. I do not want you to think of the real Salma who lives in this village. I would just like you to listen to Salma's story and discuss the questions. So it can generate data or information or experience on the components of the norm that Soraya covered. It can give you information on expectations. It can give you information on sanctions and the sensitivity to sanctions, and also exceptions to that rule, exceptions to that norm. Can anyone pick out for me which of these probing questions, so below the story, look at the bullet points below the story. Can anybody pick out which of these is asking about sanctions? Yeah, under number 2. So what will happen if she goes against the norm? So the norm is leaving the house to go alone any place. What happens if she goes against that norm? What's the sanction? What's the consequence? What will her parents do if she goes against that norm? That is asking about a sanction. Next slide. So there's multiple different ways to collect data, like we talked about, multiple different moments, but you really want to make sure that you use the data and information that took you so much time and effort to get. And so we have the social norms data use tool. The purpose of this tool is threefold, as you can see on the slide. And we use this tool after data has been collected or after information or experience has been collected on social norms. This guide does not provide you information and step-by-step how to collect that data. There are lots of different great resources for that I know the Youth Power team will send out if you'd like them. But in this tool, we're really wanting to review our data and look for opportunities where programming activities can seep in and facilitate change. After using this tool, which helps understand social norms information, and we have some design implications, or what do you want to do about your design or change about your design? We're also going to talk in a few minutes about the social norms design checklist. So let's talk about how to use our data first. Next slide. So here you can see some information that we collected in the TESFA project. It's a child marriage project in Ethiopia. In the TESFA project, we talked to mother-in-laws of married adolescent girls because we wanted to know about adolescent girls' mobility or ability to go outside the house to do different things. Both younger and older mother-in-laws reported the same anticipated sanctions or reactions for daughter-in-laws going out of the house. But relatively younger mother-in-laws, they were less sensitive to that sanction. They cared less about community gossip, meaning that community gossip did not always determine how they behaved. I want to respond to Judy's question in the chat really quickly. What exactly is meant by a crack in a social norm? A crack is just basically you see it changing. You see one of those components that Soraya mentioned. You see it starting to change or shift, or there's something weak in there. That's an opportunity to introduce programming so the crack in the social norm can widen and social norms change can continue to take place or even accelerate. So here is a really good example of a crack in the sanctions. The sanctions are sensitivity towards the sanctions. So you can see younger mother-in-laws are less sensitive to that sanction than older mother-in-laws. So not everybody is the same. Not everybody thinks the same. You can see that there's potential for younger mother-in-laws to become what we call positive deviants or champions for change. And you might want to start in your design application is that you might want to target your activities towards them as champions for change first, instead of older mother-in-laws or mother-in-laws as just a general group of people. Next slide, please. I'm going to hand this off to Soraya. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Ran. So our experience tells us which norms are important for behavioral change and where the cracks are to help facilitate change. Now we want to change, we want to design activities in a project to widen that crack and create behavioral change. So social norms theory pushes us to go beyond traditional behavioral change intervention, which seek to change individuals' personal attitude and knowledge, and consequently their behavior. So usually those through awareness raising and information sharing, we can do design the interventions. But for social norms, however, as the rules of behavior within a group may be blocked this pathway of change. So individuals may personally disagree with the norms, but act in accordance with it out of a desire for social belongings and to avoid social backlash. So attitudes and knowledge are still important factors to address for behavior change, but addressing social norms as well may be a key piece in transforming some of the more difficult behavior, especially those that are kept in place by gender norms. So therefore, we would like to recommend those to keep those characteristics to design a norm shifting intervention for your program or project. Therefore, we want to move beyond traditional behavior change communication and shift norms. So here are the strategies. So the biggest takeaway here is that you are intention about changing things at community level. Your theory of change, your indicators for success, and your activities especially do more than change things with individuals. Here, beyond the individual level changes, you can see community level changes, and also present the actual behavior norms which are exist in this working community, and also please emphasize the creation of positive gender social norms in your intervention. You could engage wider range of people at multiple levels, to following the ecological model in your program. Also, the community-led interventions could be included in your project to change or shift the norms in a positive way. The other important things is to create safe place for the community members or the program participants, so that they can critically reflect their thinking with others people they might share their common beliefs or not. Also address the power imbalance power relationship to in your target working communities. What are the relationship influence the lives of your program participant, like adolescent girls or adolescent boys or other community peoples. Also organize a diffusion. You can share, you can begin the intervention with a core group, then you can engage other community members also to shift the norms and change the negative social norms in your working areas or in your project In the chat box, you will find a document from the Social Norms Learning Collaboration about, to find out more about those characteristics. Next slide, please. So for designing a social norms program, we here offer some checklist. There are so many characteristics, but tipping point will suggest those 5 checklist. It's similar to the list you saw before, but has more prior item to think about when designing activities. The first, you can identify the early adapters who are already, I believe, or practicing the positive social norms in their private and public lives. And the second, you can map the allies and ask for their support for the early adapters or the positive deviants in your working area. You can the project intervention should create open space for dialogue, where people can share their perception and share their behavior, which might differ from other members, but the space should be safe so that they can share their thoughts and insights. And the fourth checklist, we suggest that to use future-oriented message. From our experience in working on to end early child and forced marriage, because everybody knows the negative consequences of child marriage. But if we use the future-oriented message, the positive messages, if the girl's married later and if she get the chance to complete her education, what could be the future for her and her family as well as their society. So you might consider to use positive as well as future-oriented messages for your project intervention. The last but not the least, to expect bystander action. Here, the third person who experiences or face the negative social norms, you can also design some intervention to, to facilitate, to catalyze some good bystander action by the other who might not target core program participant like adolescent girls and boys, but also you can include the good bystanders so that good bystanders activities or interventions, so that the community people show their action for external support for the other community members. So I will stop here and hand over it to Upasana for the next activities.
Thank you, Suraiya. So we'll be doing a quick route of breakout group activity now, since we have talked many aspects of norm shifting interventions and the social norms design checklist. So we would like to look very closely and relate the things that are mentioned in the social norms design checklist with our own programming. And to do that, I have just put the link in the chat box, and you can open the link and see the document that relates with the social norms design checklist in a more detail. And you can also see that these design checklists are available in multiple languages. So whichever language you prefer to look at, you can have a choice to look at. And for now, we'll be quickly moving out into the breakout rooms, where each of the breakout rooms will be having one facilitator. And for the detailed steps that needs to be done in the breakout room is already mentioned in the screen. Also, you can see, like, after having a review in the social norms design checklist, we would like to have a quick reflection on these two key questions. And to do all of these exercises, we'll be taking around 20 minutes. And in the group work also, if you have any confusion, any questions related to the exercise itself, we facilitator will be helping you out. And after the group work, we'll be meeting at the main room and having a short discussion, and we'll be taking the key reflections of this group activity. So I would like to request Cecina, Candice, to set the breakout rooms and send participants in the respective room.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Let's see if we've got everybody. Okay, we've got about 30 people back. So I'm just gonna say quickly, because we only have about 10 minutes left. I want to just share a few things about this type of gender transformative social norms programming at CARE. First and foremost, those on the ground working in communities need as much support and training as we can provide them. Like my group talked about, this is really hard work, and it's got to begin with ourselves. If we don't believe in these gender norms that they should change, we're not going to appear genuine when we have this discussion with others. And critical reflection and dialogue is not easy to facilitate. It is a skill that needs to be developed and practiced and prepared for over time. So I can't underscore enough how much quality supportive facilitators that start with themselves, how much that's going to impact your program quality over time. The next thing I would emphasize is monitoring backlash, especially with youth programming. When we're doing norm shifting with adolescents, you're asking them to step out and challenge norms in their community. That can be really scary, and that's for a reason. So working with them to identify potential backlash or consequences and their allies to help them deal with all of this, it's incredibly important. I'll stop there, and I'm gonna just go to a pause and reflect. But if you got anything else from your experience, it's just really, really important in this type of programming, we'd love to hear it in the chat. So we've got about 5 minutes. We discussed a lot today. I'd love a quick reaction from people in the chat as well. If there's one thing you're going to remember most from today, one thing that you might share with somebody, yeah, we'd love to hear it. Or if you have any clarifying questions, anything, any tools that you might be looking for, we'd love to hear those as well. Oh yeah, the 24-hour clock is a favorite. Yep. Really, really simple tool, really easy to facilitate, really easy to plug in some norms questions and just get deeper information about the norms that are impacting your project and facilitate it in, yeah, people's lives. Yeah, exactly. Doing the seasonal calendar plus the clock, totally agree, Sylvia. Love those tools together. And they're really easy to do, and they're really quick to do as well. They don't need a lot of time, effort, money. People don't need professional data collectors for them. They're great. Okay, I don't see an incredible amount of questions in the chat, so I'm going to hand it back to Chesina to share some resources. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Anne, Soraya, and Upasana for just a wonderful workshop. We appreciate it. Before we end, I just wanted to review some resources that we wanted to share. There's some toolkits out there that will help you to do a gender analysis with youth, as well as gender integration tools in social and behavior change resources. We will give you the slides and the recording, and so you'll be able to click on these and review them. There's also some resources that are between conversations about gender equality with women and men in 20 countries, as well as ways to have these dialogues with men. In our breakout room, we talked about the importance of engaging men and dealing with resistance to those norms. And so we're hoping that this questioning gender norms might help answer those questions. And feel free to add any other useful resources about gender norms in the chat. We love to add more resources, to our list. I'm going to pass it off to Candace because we want to do a quick poll before we leave to help with future events. Candace?
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we were just, with the Gender CoP this year, we're very, very keen on prioritizing engagement and learning more from each other. So I think it's really important that we get to learn from you. So we want to know what other learning spaces or communities focus on gender and youth and who coordinates them. And so a poll must have popped up on your screen right now. Please feel free to just, answer it and just help us connect with other learning spaces so that we can learn more and cross-collaborate, especially for future events. Oh, and most importantly, please ensure that you tell us who organizes these events or who's responsible for these events, so that we can also reach out.
Candace, I will leave up the poll, but I think I'll keep moving on the slides.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Stephanie. All right, and so just to have a reminder again, for this year, we are really about ensuring that we are engaging with our community. So we will still have webinars where you can learn from experts, but we are also having coffee chats, which is essentially a virtual cafe where you just have your coffee or tea or whatever else you drink as a warm beverage, and you learn from each other, you introduce each other, and we get to know more about the opportunities that we can learn from, that we can potentially grow from each other. So on Thursday, January 31st, there is an event taking place with another COP, which is the Youth System Strengthening COP. That is a virtual cafe that the theme is about youth and governance. And then on Thursday, February 23rd, we have the Gender COP, a meet and greet coffee chat. So the whole point of that is just really get to re-energize, reset, but also to meet new Gender COP members as a way to get to understand what any work that you're doing, to network, and also cross-collaborate in terms of opportunities. But if there are any other future events that you are most likely interested in with other COPs, not only just gender, please feel free to just visit the Youth Power page, or you can just email info@youthpower.org. And like we said, every week we do drop a newsletter that is very engaging, that has opportunities, whether it be funding, job opportunities, sponsorships, and also other gender events. So please make sure that you are also joining the Gender COP group, which you can do on the Youth Power page. Next slide. So we'd just like to thank you for joining this webinar. We hope you learned a lot. And like we said, we will share every bit of information to everyone who registered. So thank you for joining.